These are the two brand new Osights. Let's get into it. Alright, now before we get into the video, I do need to mention that Osight is having a huge sale on these for the next few days. It's going to be 20% off. And in certain instances, you could get a free Osight challenge coin as well as an i3E EOS. It's a small little AAA keychain flashlight, and it's a special edition for the launch of the new Osight brand. And anyway, if you do miss that sale, you can still get 10% off using the coupon code APARMS. And I'm going to leave a link to the web store in the description. So let's get back into the video. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the original Osight. It was launched not too long ago by Olight, and I'm sure you guys are very familiar with the brand Olight, and that is the parent company of the new Osight brand. They have actually broken away from Olight into a different sister company that is headquartered out of Arizona. And you can see on this box, there is nothing referring to Olight itself. It is all branded Osight, which is really cool. And something I wanted to mention, Olight is obviously a Chinese company. All their products are made in China, and Osight is a sister company to Olight. However, Osight is headquartered in Arizona, and they are currently working on getting a manufacturing plant in the United States to build all of their products in the United States. That is really cool, and definitely worth mentioning. And here they are. These are the two new optics from Osight. You can see clearly that they are different sizes, and they also have a lot of other differences that I'll go over shortly. But for right now, you have the Osight X, which is the large optic, and then the Osight S, which is the small optic. Now, included in the box with each of them, obviously you have the optic in its magnetic charging case. So you can pull it down here, there's the optic itself, and you also have the magnetic charging case. Here are the mounting screws. There's 4 different threads, and each of them come in 2 different lengths, so you're not going to have any issues mounting this to whatever you want to mount it to. And here's the box that the screws come in. You can pause it here if you want to see exactly what size each of the screws are. You do get a USB-C charging cable for charging the case. You also get this tool for mounting it, as well as adjusting the windage and elevation screws. It also comes with this little carrying pouch as well as a cleaning cloth. You do also get the silicone lanyard for attaching it to the charging case, and then obviously they come with the instruction manuals. So here they both are, the S and the X. I'm first going to go over how they both function. They are both very similar as far as buttons and everything goes, and then afterwards I'm going to show all the differences between the two optics. And here they are. You have the X on the right and the S on the left. You can see the size difference is pretty intense here. The X is significantly larger than the S. So let's go over function. I'm going to use the X to demonstrate function, and then I'm going to pull these both together, and I'm going to illustrate every single difference between the two sights. So let's go ahead and look over the external features. We'll start with the X, and then I'll briefly go over the ones on the S as well. Starting off on the front, you do have your lens. It is multi-coated, which is really nice. Right below it, you have a little dot here, and that is actually for your ambient light sensor. So it will sense the different lighting conditions that you are in and adjust the reticle brightness for it. On the top, you have your charging pad, and this is where the magnetic charging case contacts it to charge the optic. You can also use an Olight magnetic charging cable for it as well. Down the side, you have the Osight branding. Further down, you have your plus and minus buttons for the brightness. In the middle, there is a little dot there that is hidden until you turn the light on and off, and that is actually a battery level indicator. If it's green, it's greater than halfway charged. If it's yellow, it's around 50 to 20%. Anything under that is red, and then if it's blinking red, it's less than 10% and you need to charge the optic. Going around the side, you have the X marking. Around the back, you do have your lens, and this X model does have a very large lens. It is rather nice. On the top, you have your adjustment screw for elevation, and going to the right side, you have your adjustment screw for windage. And then on the bottom, you can see all the other branding as well as the mounting points and the through holes for the 2 screws used to mount it. Moving on to the case, you have the Osight branding on the side. You also have a little lanyard hole right there. On the front, there's nothing. On the other side, you have more Osight branding as well as the button. Around the back, you have all your information there as well as the USB-C charging port for charging the case. On the bottom, you can see deep in there, you do have a couple contacts, and that's where it makes contact with the charging pad on the Sight. And on top, you do have the built-in battery status indicator, and that is on both of them. You can see if you push the button, it shows you the status of the case, which this one is pretty dead. I do need to charge it. But if I put it on the Sight, it then shows me the status of the optic itself, where you can see it is fully charged. And if you guys are familiar with the previous model of Osight, this is pretty standard. It's exactly the same. But for you new guys, this is a really awesome feature, and it makes charging this optic as well as protecting it really a breeze. There are no other optics on the market that have this sort of technology. Most of them, usually, if it's an RMR, it has a battery underneath where you need to remove the optic entirely from your weapon to change the battery. And then other ones also have a battery slot on the side so you can remove it. But I haven't found another similar to this. Going over how it functions, I'm going to use the X again as an example because it's bigger and easier to film. You do have the 2 buttons on the side, and you can press either of them to turn the optic on. You can see the battery status indicator illuminates for a couple seconds and goes away. And if you look at the optic now, you can clearly see the reticle is there. If I can get the focus on the ground, there you go. Now you can see the reticle. And this is one of the main differences between these new 2 models versus the last Osight. They both have 3 different reticle choices, and I'll go over how to change between them in a second. Now you can see it's in manual mode. If I press the brightness buttons, where's the dot? There we go. You can see that pressing them reduces and increases the brightness of the reticle. Holding both of the buttons at the same time will turn it off. And if I'm a bit shaky, I apologize. It's 20 degrees out here. It is freezing. So with the optic on, go ahead and turn it back on. We can put it in auto sensing mode. So if I press and hold the plus button for 3 seconds, you can see that it blinked twice, indicating now that auto sensing mode has been activated. And again, what auto sensing mode is if the optic senses different environmental brightness changes, like say you move to a dark room or it gets sunny outside, you move outside, it'll automatically match that with the reticle brightness on the optic. Now if I press and hold the plus sign again, it's going to flash once. There it goes, and now we're back in manual mode. Now this optic does also have motion sensing mode, so if you leave the optic turned on unattended for more than 10 minutes, it'll automatically turn off. And then once you pick up the weapon and the optic senses the motion, it will automatically turn back on. And to turn that on, all we gotta do is double tap and then hold the minus button for 3 seconds. And now that you saw that blink twice, that means that motion sensing mode has been activated. To turn it back off, we just do the same thing. And there we go. And that is another really cool feature, so you can have this always on and then it's not going to drain your battery. Now I'm going to focus on the ground again because I want to show you the multiple different reticles that this offers. So you can see here it is the dot with the crosshair surrounding it, which is a really awesome change. The previous Osight model was only a dot. But if I press and hold the minus button for 3 seconds, you can see that that's going to change now back into a dot. That way, if you prefer the dot, you still have that option. And if I do it again, it's going to change to only the crosshair. Pressing and holding it again, now it's back with the crosshair and the dot in the middle. So no matter what you prefer, you're going to have a reticle option for you. And again, if you want to use the magnetic charging case to keep this thing charged at all times as well as protect it, you can just leave the optic on, and when you put it in the case, it is going to turn off automatically. That's another really cool feature. And then when you remove the case, it'll turn back on. Now that we've gone over the function of both of these, and both of these function in the exact same way, let's go over the differences between the two. Obviously, size is a main difference, and I'll get into the specific specs on size in a second. But the main difference besides the size is the fact that this micro optic is also enclosed. That is awesome, and you can see the glass on the back protecting the emitter and everything inside. This is a really cool feature, and on an optic this small, I think Holosun has an option that competes with this, and maybe there's a couple others, but that's really not something that's available on the market, an enclosed optic this small. That is really awesome. On the back, you do have these two little posts here that kind of protect the elevation screw and also provide a rudimentary rear iron sight. And then you can see the window size is a lot smaller than the window size on the X. Also the same multi-coated lens, all the other features are basically the same on this. But look how thin this is. That is crazy. Alright, now going over the specs of each of them, let's start out with the X. First, let's go over the run times, how long this battery can last in the different modes. And this is on 100% brightness. A lot of sight manufacturers test this in usually 70 to 80% brightness, but this is 100% brightness. With the crosshair and the dot, the X is going to run for 21,000 hours. Now, just the dot, it'll run at 57,000 hours. That is a massive number. And if you only want to run the outside crosshair, it'll give you 22,000 hours of runtime. Battery size is 170 milliamp hours. It's got a length of 1.7 inches, a width of 1.18 inches, and a height of 1.30 inches. And it's going to weigh 46 grams. This sight is also 1 meter drop test rated as well as IPX6 waterproof rated. And again, the X is not an enclosed optic. It has an exposed emitter right there. Another thing that I should mention is that both of these optics are built in Osight's new trademark OAL material. It's basically an aluminum, but it's beefed up a little and supposedly more rugged and sturdy than original like T6 aluminum. Now, moving on to the S. Obviously, it's a lot smaller, so you're going to not get as much runtime out of it, but the numbers are still extremely impressive for a sight this size. Again, look how thin it is. And also, these numbers were achieved when the sight was tested in max brightness. So both with the dot and the crosshair illuminated, you get a runtime of 20,000 hours. Again, that's only 1,000 hours less than the X, and with an optic this small, that's extremely impressive. Now, with only the dot illuminated, you're going to get 21,900 hours of runtime. So if you want to go only crosshair, you're also going to get 20,000 hours of runtime out of it. Battery size on this is only 46 milliamp hours, so compare that to the 170 on the X, that is extremely impressive results out of a battery this size. It is also 1 meter drop test rated, just like the other, but being an enclosed optic, it is IPX7 rated, as opposed to the IPX6 on the X. Going over length, it is 1.59 inches, width is under an inch at 0.98, and height is also under an inch at 0.97. So very small dimensions on this optic. I'm very impressed with this. The weight is also extremely light at 27.5 grams. So this optic would be perfect for a subcompact concealed carry gun, something like a Glock 43X MOS. That is what I would run this on. And unfortunately, I don't have one of those to mount this to test it, but when I do get one, which will be soon, I will do another video mounting this up and testing it on that weapon. But if it's anything like the original Osight, it's going to do extremely well, and I'm looking forward to testing this out some more. Alright, and again, even though I don't have a weapon system that I can put the S on, I do have a gun that I love using the original Osight and now the X on. But before I get that mounted up, I did want to show you guys the size difference in these two Osights versus a really standard optic, the Trijicon RMR. And this is a carry gun. I don't want to remove this. I do have the screws torqued down and Loctited, and this sight is sighted in perfectly, so I don't want to mess with that, but I still can show you the size difference between the two. Starting with the X, you can see that it is significantly taller than the RMR. Next to each other, you can see it right there. There are the size differences. Length is about the same though, which makes sense because this has to fit on top of slides. Width is similar, however the X is definitely a little bit wider than the RMR. And then you can see the window size is massive on the X compared to the RMR. Also, something I'm noticing now is the tint on the RMR is much bluer than the tint on the Osight. That is nice. This is definitely nicer to look through on the Osight than the RMR. Now, if we compare the S to the RMR, you can see the difference. Now, this isn't really a fair competitor. The real competition for this sight would be the RMR CC. I don't have one of those to illustrate it, but I will show it against the standard RMR just to kind of demonstrate. But height, you can see it's very similar. The S is a little shorter than the top of the RMR. Width, however, you can see the width is significantly smaller than the RMR, which is why this would be perfect for something like a Glock 43X MOS. And length, this is also a lot shorter than the RMR. And then height off that back plane there, you can see this is very, very thin. You also have the window. The windows are similar. This has a raised portion in the middle where this has a flat top, so you can see that this is a little smaller window, but not by much. And the tint, again, the RMR is very blue compared to either of the two Osights. So, cool little demonstration just to show the difference between these two optics and a industry standard, the RMR. Now let's go ahead and mount the X up to something that I've been using the original Osight on for a little while now, and something that this works very well on. So, for the X as well as the original Osight, they do offer a Picatinny mounting adapter to convert this over to Picatinny and mount it on any Picatinny rail that you might want to. They offer this low profile one as well as a larger one, so you can mount this on an AR-15 and achieve co-witness with it. And I absolutely love this on a shotgun. I've always liked micro red dots for shotguns, and this one is no different. But with that new reticle, I'm really looking forward to testing this out. Micro red dots on shotguns are awesome, and you can see it sits just low enough so I can also co-witness with my original ghost ring sights. So if it dies or whatever, I can use the iron sights and run it through the optic. Super cool, and I'm really looking forward to testing this out with that new reticle. And again, mounting this with the adapter is super simple. It's just these two screws that you would normally mount it to the slide with. You use these two screws to secure it to the adapter, and then it's just these two screws on the right side of it to mount it to a Picatinny rail. They are spring-loaded as well, so it makes it very simple. So what are my overall thoughts on these? I really do like both of these optics a lot, especially the S. But both of them are really nice optics with a lot of nice features. The charging case is a game changer for optics and not something that's really offered on any other optic. And all the features packed into these make these a great option if you're looking for a new micro red dot. So thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, be sure to like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And again, these optics are going to be on sale for the next few days at 20% off. That is a great deal. But if you missed that sale, again, you can get 10% off of either of these on the Osight web store using the coupon code APARMS. Again, that'll all be in the description. So, thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.